Hey guys, I have a tutorial today for making paper bag skirts with suspender straps. Now this is a beginner-friendly, quick project and it just makes an adorable outfit in some cute Valentine's Day fabric. So let's go over to the sewing table and see what you're going to need to make this project. You're going to need some cotton fabric, and for most sizes 1 yard will be plenty. 1-inch wide elastic, some coordinating thread, scissors or a rotary cutter, pins, a safety pin or a bodkin for pulling the elastic through the waist, a cutting mat, and a ruler. For this project, I used a pattern from the Candy Castle Pattern Company, and as you can see, it comes with several variations. You can either make the skirt with or without the suspender straps, and you can make a regular waist or a paper bag waist. And in addition, it gives directions for measuring to make a skirt that comes above the knee or at the knee. Before we get started with the specific directions for this project, let's just talk a little bit in general about skirts with a paper bag waist. For the most part, you're using double the width of fabric by using the waist measurement. So for example, if the waist measures 20 inches, you're going to use approximately 40 inches of fabric. And that's what gives us this nice gathered look. Now you can increase that and make the skirt fuller. Just keep in mind that if you're making a skirt for a toddler and you make it extra full, it's going to be a little more revealing when the little girl moves around. So you may want to add some coordinating bloomers. Also, this skirt has a faux or fake placket in the front, and that just allows us to add some decorative buttons to this skirt. Before you cut your skirt pieces, pay attention to the direction of the print, if any, in your fabric, and also pay attention to where your selvage is. Since this is a skirt, I want the stretch of the skirt to be perpendicular to the selvage. And this is a directional print, so I want to make sure when I'm cutting and stitching these fabrics together that I make sure that the print is all going in the same direction for the front and the back of the skirt. My skirt is going to be for a 5-year-old. Now keep in mind that all 5-year-olds measure a little differently, so that's why I've taken some measurements. You're going to need to measure the waist. You're also going to need to measure from the waist to above the knee or the length that you want the skirt to be, and then add 3 inches. So that length for me is going to be 15.5 inches. You're going to measure your straps from the waist across the shoulder and straight down to the waist in the back and add 2 inches. So my strap length is 18.5. I added 2 inches, and that gives me a 20.5 inch length for the straps. So for my skirt front, I'm going to cut one piece that's 25 inches by 15.5. I'm adding 2 inches for the fake panel in the front for the buttons. And I'm also adding 1 inch for a 1/2 inch seam allowance on either side. The back is going to be 23 by 15.5 inches. And again, I'm taking my waist measurement and I'm just adding 1 inch to that for the 1/2 inch seam allowance on either side of the back. And then the straps are going to be cut 20.5 inches long by 3.25 inches wide, and I'm going to cut 2 of those. And then this skirt is using a 1/2 inch seam allowance for the construction of the sides of the skirt. I've pressed and cut the fabric out, and the next step is to start sewing. To get started, take your skirt front and fold the fabric so that the wrong sides are touching. Then give it a press and measure 1 inch from the press and draw a straight line. Once you've sewn your placket, you want to press it flat and then take 2 rows of top stitching down either side of the placket to hold it in place. At this point, you should see your skirt front coming together, and I'm already thinking that some little red heart buttons would be really cute on the front of this skirt. Now it's time to put the skirt front and the back together. So you're going to pin the skirt front and back together with the right sides of the fabric touching, or right sides together. And remember to check if you have directional fabric and make sure that both pieces have the print going in the same direction. So we're going to pin both sides together and go back to the sewing machine. Once you've sewn your sides together, press your side seams flat, and then finish the raw edges with either a serger or a zigzag stitch. Once you've folded your waistband down 2.5 inches towards the wrong side of the fabric and pressed it, you want to mark a line of stitching 1 inch from the fold all the way around this waistband. And this section is going to give you that extra ruffle or gather at the top of the waistband for that paper bag look. Then we want to make a second mark 1 inch from the first line, and this time we're going to leave an opening approximately 1 to 2 inches at the side seam, and this is going to allow us to insert our elastic into this casing. And once we finished inserting our elastic, we can go back and stitch this opening closed. So now that the elastic is through the casing, I have marked the front of the elastic with a small mark just to help me keep those pieces going in the same direction and not getting twisted. And I'm going to put the elastic over a small square of fabric, and then I'm going to butt the ends of the elastic right up against each other. And I'm going to take this to the machine and use a wide zigzag stitch, and I'm going to zigzag over these ends 2 to 3 times to secure them together. And once I've done that, I'm going to take my scissors and trim away this extra fabric, and that's just going to secure this elastic and give me one continuous elastic loop. And here's a look at the finished elastic zigzag together. I've pulled the elastic into the casing, and I'm ready to take this to the machine and just sew this opening closed. At this point, you'd have a really cute skirt, and all you would have to do is hem. So you could fold the hem into the wrong side and about 1/2 inch and press it and stitch your hem, and you would be finished. But we're going to add shoulder straps to this skirt. So I'm going to take each of my straps, and I'm going to fold those right sides together, and I'm going to stitch this strap lengthwise using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Once I'm finished, I'm going to turn those straps right side out, give them a good press, and then top stitch down each side of the strap. Once your straps are completed, it's time to attach them to the skirt. And probably the best thing to do is to try the skirt on, the little girl, and to measure over where you want your straps to be in the front and where you want them to be in the back. The straps are actually placed a little closer together in the back, and there's sort of a formula to this, but probably the best thing to do is just to try the skirt on and make the marks. For this skirt, I'm actually going to measure over from the side seam in the front. I'm going to measure over 7 inches and place a mark, and I'm going to stretch the waistband out so that I can get a mark 7 inches from the seam for the front. In the back, I'm going to measure over 9¼ inches and place a mark to attach the waistband straps. I have the straps attached, and I've centered the strap underneath the mark that I made, and I've also extended that strap on the inside down to the bottom edge of the waistband casing. And I'm going to take this to the machine, and I'm going to stretch this out a little bit, and I'm actually going to stitch right over top of the stitches that I used to make the casing, and I'm going to be careful not to catch the elastic in those stitches. And I'm going to repeat that for all 4 ends of the waistband straps. Remember to reverse at the beginning and the end of this line of stitches, just to make sure that you securely attach the strap to the waistband. The straps are attached, and it's time now to hem the skirt. We're almost finished, and what you want to do is press the hem 5/8 of an inch towards the wrong side. Give that a good press and pin in place. And then we're going to take this to the machine, and we're going to stitch 1/2 of an inch away from the fold all the way around to secure the hem. I'm ready to sew the hem, and I am going to start at the side seam. Now this helps hide the starting and stopping stitches a little bit better. I want to make sure that I reverse at the beginning and the end of stitching my hemline, and I want to be consistent with sewing a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and I have some marks on my machine that I'm going to follow while I do this. I'm going to attach my buttons to the front of the skirt using the special foot that came with my machine just for attaching buttons. If you don't have one of these feet, just use a needle and thread and sew your buttons to the front placket. And now it's time to admire your finished work. If you've enjoyed this tutorial, please hit the like and subscribe button.